So we've just published our most recent quarterly outlook. The situation is evolving a little bit differently than we'd anticipated in our last outlook. And that's largely because downside risks are materializing more concretely than we thought. Specifically in the US, growth is being marked down a little bit more than we thought, so growth around 2.5%. Still quite strong, but this big factor of uncertainty, which is trade-related uncertainty, is weighing on the economy. There's no question about that. So one of the key things the Fed is going to have to work through as it figures out what to do with interest rates is how strong are these trade tensions? How strong is this uncertainty pulling down business activity? In Canada, we have a bit of a different story. In Canada, growth in the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year was very weak. As we think about Canadian growth going forward, even though we're thinking about growth of around 1.4% for the year, so significantly lower than the US, dynamics are very different. You're starting from a weak starting point with a very significant acceleration that's evident in the second quarter. We think that's going to keep going through the third quarter and the rest of the year. As we effectively think about Canada-US growth differentials and the outlook, a much more positive picture of growth in Canada as of now, going forward, than in the US. As we think about the outlook outside of North America, I mean, there is no question that things are a little bit weaker. And there's no question that policymakers are thinking about policy differently. That's very true in Europe, where the ECB is now openly considering a cut in interest rates. The Bank of England, for instance, as of a couple of days ago, talking about the need for more accommodation rather than the need for tighter interest rates. And this is only going to be amplified if the Fed moves forward with a cut in July or a bit later on in the year. You basically have all the major central banks in the world thinking about cutting interest rates. The place where that might be different is Canada, where rates aren't, in our mind, likely to be cut. It remains to be seen how the Bank of Canada proceeds, but the conditions in Canada, as I said, are very different than they are in the rest of the world at this point in time, which is growth is accelerating. It's not weakening. It gives the Bank of Canada more flexibility.